This morning, sources familiar with the investigation telling ABC News that this masked man suspected of abducting the grandmother did not strike at random. He had scouted her home before the night she was taken.
On day 8 of the search for Nancy Guthrie, FBI agents stopped looking in the desert and started looking underground. They pried open a manhole behind her home, lowered poles into her septic tank, and probed the darkness with flashlights. You do not search a septic tank for someone you expect to find alive. That single decision tells you more about what investigators believe happened to Nancy Guthrie than anything they have said publicly. The last nine. But before we get to the blood, the septic tank search, the ransom demands that went silent, and the DNA that matches nobody in any federal database, you need to understand who Nancy Guthrie was and why what happened to her on January 31st, 2026, makes absolutely no sense. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. Her daughter is Savannah Guthrie, the co-anchor of NBC's Today Show and one of the most recognized faces in American morning television. She lived alone in a quiet desert home in the Catalina foothills just outside Tucson, Arizona, the same home she had lived in for more than 50 years. She had limited mobility. She relied on a pacemaker to keep her heart beating and daily medication that her family said was essential to her survival. Without that medication, the consequences could be fatal within days. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner at her daughter Annie's house, 4 miles away. The family ate together and played card games. Around 9:50 that night, Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, drove Nancy home. He waited 2 minutes, watched her walk inside, and saw the garage door close behind her. Then he drove away. That was the last confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie. What happened in the hours that followed would trigger one of the most intense FBI investigations in recent memory, with more than 400 agents and deputies deployed and more than 50,000 tips pouring in from across the country. 41 minutes of darkness. Here is the detail that changes everything about this case. Pay close attention because this is what the suspect got wrong. Nancy had a Google Nest doorbell camera at her front door and additional security cameras around the property, but she did not have a paid subscription to the camera service. That means the cameras could detect motion and send alerts, but they were not saving footage. Every angle that could have shown exactly what happened, exactly where Nancy was taken, all of it was gone because of a lapsed subscription, except for the doorbell. And the suspect tried to destroy that too. He physically ripped the camera off the wall and took it with him. He thought the footage was gone. He was wrong. The FBI worked directly with Google to extract data from back-end cloud servers, data that had been flagged for deletion but had not yet been permanently erased. FBI Director Kash Patel said publicly that they were able to go into those systems and actually excavate material that people would think would normally be deleted. That one sentence changed the entire investigation, because what that recovered footage shows is the kind of image that once you see it, you do not forget. At 1:47 in the morning on February 1st, a figure appeared on Nancy Guthrie's porch. Male, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", average build, full ski mask, black gloves, dark jacket, light-colored pants, sneakers. A holstered firearm was strapped to the front of his body, and on his back, a 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack sold exclusively at Walmart. A small light was visible from his mouth, likely a pen light held between his teeth for hands-free operation. Watch his behavior. He walked up to the camera and looked directly into it. He raised a gloved fist to block the lens, then bent down and ripped vegetation from the garden bed to cover the camera's view. Then he removed the entire device from the wall. Like someone executing step 4 of a 10-step plan he had already rehearsed. Firearms expert John Correa noted the weapon was carried in a universal fit holster, the kind that not an experienced gun owner would typically use. Former Detective Eric Drager said the suspect's body language showed he was not familiar with the property. He was navigating the entrance for the first time. Now, here is where it gets darker. At 2:12 in the morning, a second camera on the property detected a person. But because there was no active subscription, it captured nothing. Just a software entry confirming someone was there. Then at 2:28 in the morning, Nancy's pacemaker app showed it had disconnected from her phone. The Bluetooth connection between her Apple Watch and her device was severed. meaning Nancy had been moved beyond 30 feet from her phone. Her phone, her wallet, and her medication were all left behind inside the house. 41 minutes, that is, the entire window, from 1:47 when the camera went dark to 2:28 when her heartbeat signal disappeared. Whatever happened to Nancy Guthrie happened inside those 41 minutes. Former FBI profiler Jim Clemente called the time spent inside the home very long for a targeted kidnapping, saying it increased the risk significantly. But the real bombshell came on February 23rd when CNN and ABC reported that the same masked figure appeared on Nancy's doorstep on 2 separate days. Once without the backpack, believed to be January 31st, and once during the actual abduction on February 1st. Sources said the suspect came to the house, spotted the camera, retreated, and came back the next night with a plan to destroy it. And that changes the profile of whoever did this in ways that should concern everyone following this case. Blood on the porch. The next morning was a Sunday. Nancy was expected at a friend's home to watch a live-streamed church service. It was a weekly ritual she never missed. She did not show up. Her friend called Annie. By 11:56 in the morning, family members arrived at the house. It was empty. Nancy's phone was sitting on the counter. Her medication was untouched. The doorbell camera was gone. And on the front porch, they found something that turned a missing persons call into a crime scene. Blood. Dried blood on the porch, a trail of it leading from the front door toward the driveway. At 12:03, the family called 911. DNA testing later confirmed it belonged to Nancy Guthrie. Forensic expert Mike McCutcheon told CNN that blood is very sticky and that if she was leaving blood on the step, there was almost certainly blood inside the house that could contain footwear impressions from whoever was in close proximity to her. The next morning, Sheriff Chris Nanos held a press conference, and the look on his face told the story before his words did. He said investigators believed Nancy was taken from her home against her will, possibly in the middle of the night. He said she could not walk 50 yards by herself. Then he used the words kidnapping and abduction. What investigators started doing next, however, told a very different story from a simple kidnapping. The search operation was staggering. At peak, approximately 400 FBIO agents and deputies were assigned. SWAT teams deployed. Drones and helicopters scanned miles of desert terrain. Tracking dogs worked the property and surrounding washes. A specialized signal sniffer was deployed on a helicopter, attempting to detect signals from Nancy's Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker. The FBI established a 24-hour command post with crisis management experts from field offices across the country. The Pima County 911 Center received over 31,000 calls in 18 days. The reward climbed past $202,500. And still no Nancy, the ransom that went silent. This is where the case fractures into something nobody anticipated. And honestly, this part still does not make sense. On February 2nd, a ransom note arrived at KOLD-TV in Tucson. It included a Bitcoin wallet address and referenced specific details about Nancy's property, including a floodlight and her Apple Watch. KOLD anchor Mary Coleman told CNN that after a couple of sentences, it was clear this might not be a hoax because the note contained information only the abductor would know. Within hours, nearly identical notes arrived at KGUN-TV and TMZ. The demand was structured: $4 million in Bitcoin by February 5th. If that passed, it escalated to $6 million by February 9th at 5 p.m. The note promised Nancy would be returned within 12 hours of payment. But before investigators could verify whether those notes came from the real kidnapper, a 42-year-old man from Southern California named Derek Kalela was arrested. He had texted Annie Guthrie a fake ransom message. He admitted he had been watching the news and wanted to see if the family would respond. He had nothing to do with the kidnapping. He was an opportunist who saw a family in agony and tried to profit from it. And his arrest poisoned the entire communication chain because every note, every demand, every contact now had to be evaluated against the possibility of another fraud. The real deadline arrived: 5 p.m. on February 9th. The Guthrie family had publicly said they would pay. Savannah had gone on camera and begged. $6 million was on the table. The deadline passed. Nobody responded. No exchange, no proof of life, Nothing. Then the FBI confirmed something devastating. Spokesperson Connor Hagan announced the FBI was not aware of any continued communication between the Guthrie family and the suspected kidnappers. Read that again slowly. The people who allegedly took an 84-year-old woman at gunpoint and demanded $6 million for her return had simply stopped talking. Former FBI agent Catherine Schweit asked the question that haunts every investigator working this case. She said if you were going to abduct somebody for cash, why would you not aggressively communicate with the family from the start to get your money and return the victim? And then comes the part that changed everything. Once you understand what investigators did at that property on day 8, you will never look at this case the same way. What the FBI found underneath. Aerial news helicopters captured footage of agents at the back of Nancy's home prying open a manhole cover behind a smaller outbuilding. The same building where days earlier FBI agents had been spotted on the roof, removing what appeared to be a camera. Now they were going underneath it. Fox News correspondent Jonathan Hunt reported live, his voice dropping as he described what he was watching in real time. 3 investigators lowered a long metal pole into the opening and probed the contents of the septic tank, jabbing it repeatedly, methodically, changing angles, pushing deeper. A second agent held a flashlight aimed straight into the darkness below. A third held a clipboard and wrote continuously, documenting every inch of what they encountered. And when the Pima County Sheriff's Department was asked directly what they were looking for, they repeated one line. Detectives and agents continue to conduct follow-up at multiple locations. They did not say what they found. That non-answer is itself an answer. CNN analyst John Miller explained the logic. He said investigators are working the kidnap angle, but also asking where else she could be. Is there a septic tank? Where does the garbage go? If the answer to "have we looked there yet" is no, then you go look. Former Tucson homicide investigator Benjamin Jimenez assessed bluntly that they were tying up loose ends and checking every area they had not yet reached. 4 days later, the FBI deployed its video forensic analysis unit. This is the same elite team that worked the Brian Kohlberger quadruple killing case in Idaho. They carried hard cases of equipment into a blackout tent erected over Nancy's front entrance to recreate the exact lighting conditions from the night of the crime. They tested how replica clothing and a similar backpack would appear through a doorbell camera at night, studying reflections to confirm brand identifications. A forensic height board was photographed being carried from the scene. Retired FBI agent Steve Moore told CNN this represented going back to square one. They were remapping the entire property with surveying equipment. This level of forensic reconstruction is not standard procedure for a ransom case. This is what investigators do when they believe the crime scene itself holds the final answers. The DNA, the gloves, and the raids. The forensic evidence from Nancy's property created more questions than it answered, and every new discovery made the case more disturbing. DNA was recovered from the property that does not belong to Nancy. It does not belong to anyone in close contact with her, but the sample was mixed, containing genetic material from at least 2 people, which significantly complicated the analysis. Sheriff Nanos told NBC News there had been a snag with mixed DNA, and that the technology challenges could take weeks, months, or up to a year. Investigators began pursuing investigative genetic genealogy, the same method used to identify the Golden State Killer and Brian Kohlberger. Chief geneticist Cece Moore of Parabon Nanolabs said publicly that if she was the kidnapper, she would be extremely concerned right now because using this technology, he will be identified, and it is just a matter of time. Black gloves became a critical focus. Approximately 16 pairs were found in searches of the surrounding area. One glove, recovered about 2 miles from the home, appeared to match the gloves in the doorbell footage. DNA inside it belonged to an unknown male, but returned no match in CODIS, the FBI's national database of 19 million offender profiles. And here is the detail that should keep you watching. The glove DNA did not match the unknown DNA found at Nancy's property. That raises the deeply unsettling possibility that more than one person was involved. On day 13, a massive SWAT raid hit a house in the Shadow Hills neighborhood 2 miles away. Roads closed for 4 hours. A 36-year-old man named Luke Daly and his mother were detained while warrants were executed. His attorney confirmed he had absolutely no link to the case. Both were released without charges. A gray Range Rover was sealed with evidence tape and towed from a nearby parking lot. A man named Carlos Palazuelos had been detained near the Mexican border days earlier and also released. A daughter's plea, and the silence that answered. Savannah Guthrie left NBC. She walked away from co-hosting the opening ceremonies of the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan. During the broadcast, her co-host told viewers she was dearly missed by everybody. Savannah was not in Italy. She was in Arizona, standing in front of a camera, not as a journalist, but as a daughter whose mother had vanished. On February 4th, in a video coordinated with FBI hostage negotiators, she addressed the captors directly. She said the family was ready to talk. She said they needed proof of life. She said they lived in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated, and they needed to know, without a doubt, that Nancy was alive. Then she spoke to her mother. She said, "Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter. Everyone is looking for you everywhere." On February 5th, her brother Cameron, a retired Air Force colonel, posted his own plea. He said, "Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We have not heard anything directly." On February 7th, Savannah stood between her siblings and said 6 words that detonated across every newsroom in the country. "This is very valuable to us, and we will pay $6 million. The kidnapper never responded. On Valentine's Day, Savannah posted old home movies from decades ago with a caption that read, "Our lovely mom, we will never give up on her." Neighbors placed yellow flowers and ribbons outside Nancy's home. A woman whose mother played mahjong with Nancy lit candles and placed mahjong tiles at the memorial, her hands shaking. Another neighbor told CNN that seeing that monster come onto the porch is horrible. "My mom lives alone, and now I am worried as heck about her." Today, show colleagues wore yellow ribbons on air. As of day 24, there has been no arrest. More than 50,000 tips have poured in. Over 400 personnel have worked this case. The FBI's most advanced forensic units have been deployed. Unknown DNA has been recovered. Gloves have been tested. A septic tank has been probed. And the masked figure with the holstered weapon and the Walmart backpack remains completely unidentified. Sheriff Chris Nanos told the New York Times something that carried the weight of decades in law enforcement. He said, "Maybe it is an hour from now, maybe it is weeks or months or years from now, but we will not quit. We are going to find Nancy. We are going to find this guy." But here is what nobody in an official capacity will say out loud. The FBI does not deploy elite forensic reconstruction teams, probe underground tanks, pursue genetic genealogy on mixed DNA, and double A reward to $100,000 for a case they expect to end with a phone call and a safe return. A retired LAPD lieutenant said publicly he would be treating this as a homicide investigation, given the time elapsed and Nancy's medical needs. Every action points in one direction. The silence confirms it. And somewhere out there, someone whose eyes were captured through a ski mask at 1:47 in the morning is running out of time, because the DNA does not forget, and the FBI does not stop. What do you think really happened to Nancy Guthrie that night? Drop your theory in the comments, because when this case finally breaks wide open, you are going to want to say, "You called it."